Today on the MrMaple Show podcast, Sean and Brian count down the top 25 Japanese maples for background planting. Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to another MrMaple Show podcast. Back in the podcast studio with Brian. Man, I'm excited about this list. Today, we've got the top 25 Japanese maples for background planting.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. We started putting together this list. Sean said, man, I need a podcast. Well, outside, it's a frozen tundra right now. I said, all right, man, I'll take one for the team. I'll come into the warm office and hang out and talk about plants for a while, all right? I'm all excited about this, guys. Appreciate you tuning in to the MrMaple Show podcast. We talk about a lot of things here on the channel. Sometimes we have guests that we interview. We do a lot of different topics to help you guys understand how to use the plants we sell here at MrMaple in your landscape.
Like, subscribe, share, and check out MrMaple.com. Man, looking ahead at some of these 10 at 10s that are coming up. Woo, some bangers coming up, man.
Yeah, guys, keep your eyes on our website at MrMaple.com. We've got a lot of sales going on right now this time of the year. A lot of high inventory stuff out there available right now on the website. So go take a browse on that and see what you can find. We've got a nice list of plants here. Now, most of these that we're going to talk about today are currently in stock, but depending on when you listen to this podcast, they may not be. So make sure you understand that you can go to the website and sign up to be notified when these trees come back in stock. It's kind of a cool way to keep you in the loop on some things that are on your wish list. You can sign up and be notified when they come back.
So Corbin and I did a podcast a while back that was the top 25 Japanese maples for focal point. You and I recently did one, top 25 for walkway planting. Now we're getting into that background planting. So this, let's set it straight here. Not a lot of witches' brooms, not a lot of dwarfs on this list because it's that background. And you and I, we did a landscaping video a while back.
Yeah.
Where we talked about the importance of you have your foreground, your midground, and your background. And this background really is, hence background. Mm-hmm. So it's what all your other colors and textures are going to contrast off of. And, a lot of these are ones that you can, kind of build, if you wanted to along a property line, put some of these bigger ones back there.
Yeah.
So when you have those smaller stuff up front along the walkways or your focal points, these are really going to show off against these in the background.
Yeah, it really does create a dynamic display of color variances when you kind of think about how you layer your garden with your background, your foreground, everything in between, those walkway plantings like we talked about. So, I was really trying to think about, how I could put together a list of some plants that are going to give you a great background, but not also things that wouldn't get lost in that background too, that had some nice variety of color changes and things like that.
Colors and textures.
So that you could continuously kind of play off of what you have out front of it, that way you're not losing those things in the background.
And like you said, I came to you and said, hey man, can you want to put together a list for, background? And I didn't see this list until you brought it to me. And going through it and, just running through them and kind of seeing what you had on there. I'm like, man, all of these in themselves can, give that color and texture and all that within themselves. Right. So playing those off of what you could put in front of it, man, killer. So let's jump right in. Let's start with number 25, an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, man.
The one that started off for a lot of people. Definitely. We have Acer palmatum Bloodgood.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing cultivar. I really think that kind of changed the landscape in America, especially here, because I think, everybody fell in love with the idea of having a Japanese maple in their landscape. It's such a majestical tree, so much history behind it. And Acer palmatum Bloodgood is a classic for a reason. This tree has been used in so many applications in so many different landscapes. It's got that bright, bold red color, and it gets to a good sized tree over time as well. We're talking about that 20 to 25 foot range in 30 years. So this tree gets a pretty good size when you think about Japanese maples. Most of them are on the smaller side or medium sized trees, but Bloodgood can get out there in time.
And what I like about Bloodgood, it's also a tank.
Yeah.
It's been around the block. It's, people know it, but man, it's a tank. So you could put it out in your landscape, put it out there as that background planting. And with that red, man, it just opens up a whole new color spectrum of what you can put in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, Bloodgood's such consistent coloration as well. What I love about it, you get that kind of that bold maroon, bright maroon color in the spring. Holds that color very well, even into summer months. You can get a little bit of greening there in late summer, just before it turns fall, but then you get that extra show there in the fall where it turns that bright scarlet red again. So just thinking about as that background tree, definitely one that should be on your list. I mean, for all of those reasons. One, it's tried and true. That's one of those cultivars that's been around for so long, and you've seen it used successfully in so many applications. Had to be on our list, right? We were both like, we have to have this tree on our list. Acer palmatum Bloodgood.
So, this next one, number 24, Acer bugerianum angio weeping. Man, this is I'm so glad you put this on there because you're looking at a tree that you're getting around that 15 to 20 foot once you start to get to those larger sizes in age. But man, then, Acer bugerianum, that's the Trident. So you're getting that texture from a Trident maple. But man, then you also get that weeping habit from it. But so you get that height, but then you get those textures and that weeping habit, man. Just a killer background tree.
Absolutely. Yeah. And check out some of the pictures that we have at MrMaple.com on this one to really help you understand kind of the size and scope that this tree can get to over time. And I really love that weeping style because it kind of plays into different habits. A lot of these are going to be more of those upright types that are going to be, that classic upright tree. But this one, you're going to get that weeping habit, which gives it something unique. And being a Trident, their fall colors are super intense, very bright reds in the fall on this thing. And I love the fact that this tree, any two of them are not the same. I love that about the weeping style. You can stake them, kind of manipulate their shape, kind of let them cascade down and create your own design. And especially if you're looking in that background, you're kind of thinking, what do I want this to look like behind everything? You can really kind of play with the shaping on it. So I love that about that cultivar. And a very heat tolerant cultivar as well. This is something you can put out in full sun, being a Trident maple. So a great choice for a background because you're not going to have to worry about, I need shade or anything like that. You can put it right out there in the sun and not have to worry about that. It's a very vigorous tree as well, so you're not going to have to wait too long for it to get a good size. Sometimes those background plantings, you're kind of waiting for them to get there, especially depending on what size you're starting with. So a great choice for that. I love getting into the Trident maples. Like you said, that texture is great.
Well, going down when we went to Texas, we saw, Acer bugerianums being used as street trees. So you talk about that heat quality, like we saw it, but a lot of times we think of weeping in Japanese maples. We think of the lace leaves. We think of stuff that typically will get wider than tall. And, unless we get into the conifer world, you don't see a lot of more upright with weeping habits in maples, unless you get into those. Like I say, usually they're the smaller ones that are wider than tall. So it's really cool. This particular cultivar, man, it gives you a vertical interest as well, but you get that habit. And I mean, that's a game changer.
It's a game changer for sure, man. So next on the list, guys, I had to go with this one because I think this might be like one of the most underrated maples right now.
Holy cow,
especially,
you ain't lying.
Out in the market today. We got Acer Variegated Hong Long. Oh man, this thing is absolutely remarkable. This is going to be an evergreen or a semi-evergreen maple, depending on where you're at in the country. So to me, that immediately was like, when you're thinking of that background, You know, you want something that's going to have a presence there. And this one's going to give you that kind of evergreen or semi-evergreen presence in your background. So I was really excited to get that added to the list.
And the spring interest on this, I mean, don't get it wrong. You kind of get those like purple, kind of chocolatey kind of colors coming out of it.
Really nice colors.
And I mean, and then, you know, the foliage is so different than any other type of maple you would have in your landscape. So you're getting that contrast back there in the background with it. And I've got to ask if there's anyone that's done it, because I've been told that since it is a evergreen or semi-evergreen, that this might be the one maple you could grow as an indoor plant. So if anyone's brave enough out there
to try it
out, please try it out and let me know how it works out, because that would be really cool in itself as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is a really cool cultivar. I kind of love the story behind this too, you know, being found by a gentleman who worked at the J.C. Ralston Arboretum. Man, such a cool story behind that. He eventually got a name on this. They have a large specimen there at the Arboretum. I was able to see that when we went and did some filming there. Absolutely beautiful, man. The leaves are so interesting. Sometimes you tell people, yeah, this is a maple, and they're like scratching their head a little bit, because the other part is that this grafts onto Acer palmatum as well. So this is going to, it leads right into, you know, being on this list for a reason. I think the colors, the leaf shape, that evergreen appearance you can get out there. And even in these semi-evergreen settings, you get some fall color that starts on this as well. You get some really cool like red splotching on those leaves. And it holds that fall color for a long time too, because it doesn't really want to drop those leaves. Right. But it's, you know, it's struggling to be in that, depending on what environment it's in. So I really like that. Here at the farm, here in North Carolina, we do see some fall color in it and a few leaves drop. So, man, it's an exciting tree, and I think it's highly underrated for that, especially for background planting. I think it's a perfect tree for that.
Well, the texture that it puts off with that foliage, like I said before, it's so different than any other type of maple out there, but it is a maple. But, man, put this in your background, and then in your midground, throw in some of those linear lobums to contrast off that foliage of the honglong. Dude, man, you are setting your garden up for success.
That's right, man. That's right. This is going to be kind of a medium-sized tree as well, around that 8 to 10 feet in 10 years kind of range. So you want to be kind of strategic where you place this. It's not going to be as big as some of these others. But if you play into that strategy of what you have in front of it, you'd want something a little lower, a little smaller, that would kind of play on that size and contrasted color.
And I think the word is layering, where you're layering it so as your eyes move back to what's in the background, it's keeping you moving. You're not just getting stuck in one area of the garden.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, moving right along, coming in at number 22, we have Acer palmatum Benny Hagoromo.
Man, I love this cultivar. This is going to get you into some texture, some crazy texture right here. One of the reasons it was high on my list, because I believe the sessilifolium style of foliage on these particular Japanese maples is just extraordinary. They have this very delicate looking leaf, finely serrated. Each lobe is kind of singled out, so it has this really odd leaf shape, especially for a Japanese maple. But don't let all of those features fool you. This is a very heat-tolerant plant, very vigorous growing plant as well. This thing can get out there. They have one over at Matt and Tim's mom and dad's place, and it's just such a huge tree over there. And every time I go over there, I'm just kind of taken back by how big Benny Hagoromo can get. Acer palmatum Benny Hagoromo, really cool tree.
Well, like you say, you're looking at about 15 foot in 20 years.
Yeah.
And for a Japanese maple, that's pretty impressive.
It is,
to be able to get to that in that time frame. And I appreciate Matt and Tim. You know, a lot of times when you go to a nursery and it's got the tag on there, and you pull up that tag, you see, you know, full sun, partial sun, or you know, or you see the term at maturity. And I appreciate Matt and Tim doing it in time, because that gives you a true sense of what to expect. And especially when you start talking about different climates and different places that you live. You know, you're from Oklahoma. I'm from Memphis, and I've seen those tags, oh, this. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe where that tree was originally cultivated, that's true information. But for me, where I'm at in my climate, throw that out the water.
Right.
So, like I say, I really appreciate Matt and Tim doing that in that timeline when we do these trees, because it really does give you a sense of what to expect in that time period. Because that term at maturity, I mean, if you break it down, it really doesn't mean anything, because what is in terms of a tree, in terms of plants, what's mature? As long as it's alive,
it's growing.
It's growing.
That's right, man. And Benny Hageroma has a really nice habit as well. Very, very upright tree, but it keeps kind of a narrow vase shape to it in that long term. So that's another thing to kind of think about when you're talking about planting this in your background. You may have a space back there where you don't have a lot of width there, so you might want to go with something that's going to keep it a little bit narrower stance, going to give you a nice vase shape out in the garden, especially when it gets to some height. It really just kind of gives you this big flag of color out there in your garden, especially in that background setting, that pops of color. And this thing gets some beautiful cherry reds in the spring when it first leaves out, going to kind of those mix of reds and greens in the summer. So I love the texture and colors off this. I think it's a perfect plant for our list today, talking about that background planting.
Okay, coming in at 21, we have Acer palmatum, Blackbeard's Gold. Man, I love the story behind this one, because, a lot of times I've heard Talon talk about, how there's something he sees, but then, it doesn't do very well in the trade. And then there's been stuff where he's like, you know what? I grew it. Haven't thought about it, but I had enough people come to me and say, I want that.
Right.
And for Matt and Tim, that's Blackbeard's Gold is their, hey, I want that. Originally just a seedling,
yeah, man.
But enough people, hey, I want that. And when that happens is during the fall, is when this shows. And what I appreciate you putting Blackbeard's Gold on that list is, man, now for that background, we are getting a fall show going on with those golden yellows.
Oh,
man, you can really design that placement with that in the background, with what's in front of it, with the colors during the fall, what are going to contrast off that yellow. And that yellow during the fall is also going to brighten everything up as well.
Yeah, I love, you're right, man. The fact that this is a MrMaple introduction, going back old school. This is one that Norman spent some time trying to get this one going. It's a great story. And also, I think just the fact that you get a nice, vigorous tree, upright, vigorous tree, competing kind of in that Bloodgood kind of range. Right. You get into that like 15 to 18 feet in 20 years. So it definitely gets up there in time. And what I think is great about this cultivar is the transition into that fall. You highlighted that with the yellow. Most of your red uprights are not going to go yellow. They're going to go to those reds. Mm-hmm. So, with strategic planning, when you think about putting this in your background area with that transition into the yellows, what you put out front can really play on that dynamic color change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're looking at, like you said, 15 to 18 foot in 20 years. And the habit of it as well is I like, because when you look at, pictures of the bigger ones, you see that habit as it comes up, it's upright, but it also likes to spread out, especially towards the top there, which really gives you a vast amount of space for that background to contrast everything in front of off of.
Yeah, nice canopy for that, and then that display of color just kind of exaggerated because it's got that big canopy with all those leaves. Great choice for this list. All right, Sean, what do we got coming up next here?
Ooh, you bringing some splash to the background. This is one of my favorites. We have Acer coming in at 20, Acer palmatum Celebration, Talon Buckle's introduction. Woo-wee!
Man, I'm telling you, this thing is definitely one worth celebrating. I think it's, probably one of my favorite. And when you look at those reticulated types, you get some crazy intense pink colors on this with this dark veining inside the leaf. Really, really exciting tree. And when I was thinking about putting on this list, I was thinking, a lot of times, even when you're starting your background planning, you already kind of have a natural background of kind of that green, just nature's natural background. And so starting with some color can definitely kind of help break up that green wall that we all kind of have, just the natural landscape behind you. So that bright pink color, I think, was just the perfect way to kind of set the tone for your background, to kind of separate your garden from the rest of the world, behind you. So I really love that. I think a great splash of color, especially with Celebration. I mean, it's got intense colors. Now, this is going to be kind of in that 10-foot range in 10 years. So it kind of a mid-sized tree, not extremely large, but a good size for a landscape, especially all these smaller gardens as well.
What I like about Celebration as well is we talk about different cultivars where we have like, oh, this is ever-changing, putting on a show. And then we also talk about, well, there's some cultivars that they kind of, during the summer kind of get, kind of bleak before we start getting into that fall and those colors start to come back. With Celebration, to me, I add that in that list of summer interest as well.
Yeah.
This is one when the foliage starts to get more of that darker green, you still kind of get some of that white kind of creamy and veining going on it, but it's darker. Man, that second flush that comes out of it, man, it is so red, so pink, that to me, like, I remember the first time walking into the greenhouse during the flush, and it looked like, I'm like, are there flowers growing out of that? So now you're adding a continuous change. You're adding that flush during those summer months into your background, contrasting off of anything that you have in front of it.
Yeah, really cool tree. I mean, I love the reticulated types. It kind of plays into that color variance, and a lot of trees are kind of a single tone. Sometimes they just have a single color, whereas those reticulated types, they kind of play in that color variance within the leaf. You get some nice shades of pink and then softer pinks, and like you said, even some like creamy tones too in the late summer with that green and pink kind of popping off of each other. Really, really nice tree. Definitely one, at Talon Buckholt's introduction, you got to have it, man.
Okay, coming in at number 19, we have Acer Palmatum Festival. And hey, man, who doesn't like I always have a good time at a festival, so why not throw one in your background?
Absolutely, man. This thing is really, really nice tree. This is going to be a nice vigorous tree too. You can get over a foot of growth on this one a year. It's kind of why it kind of stuck out in my mind as one. It's a great choice for that background planting. It's going to be kind of in that range of 12 foot in 10 years. So it's going to get out there pretty quick for you too. And I've seen some of the young ones that we have here at the farm in the 1 gallons. They're quite vigorous when they're young. So they get established pretty quickly. I like that about it. And it's got a nice leaf as well. It's got kind of that Matsumura style leaf to it, which plays in the texture that we talk about a lot of times when we're looking at that, adding to background to kind of provide contrast.
And, a lot of times with background, when people think about a background tree or a background plant, I think a lot of times people are just thinking of it as a way to block out what's behind it.
Right.
Whether it's a neighbor, whether it's, an unsightly, something out there that you want to block. But with these, it just doesn't need to be a shade or a wall to block something out.
Yeah.
You're really able to bring out all those colors that allow your background. Like I say, I don't want to just be a skipping record that repeats itself, but really it allows you to create that color and context. And I think Festival is a great one to add that.
Yeah, I mean, its fall color is super intense. I think that's one of its biggest attributes for sure, is that it has a wide range of colors. You get yellows, oranges, reds on that leaf. And the way the colors kind of start to creep into the leaf in the fall, like the transition, it's not just the whole leaf turns all at once. It's like the gradient starts on the edges. You kind of keep that kind of green middle, and it starts on the edges with some reds and then creeps in. So it really intensifies as you get into the fall. And I think, when I think of a background plant, I want a good finale. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want a great finale in the garden, and I love a tree that kind of just puts on a great fall show, kind of letting you know, hey man, that you did its job this year. Go dormant for the winter, and we'll see you this spring.
Right.
And it's just a great plant. And I think a nice vigorous grower for your list as well.
Okay, guys, coming in at number 18, we have Acer Palmatum Fireglow. And man, what I really appreciate, I think there's a lot of people have Fire Glow. They use it really well. I see it a lot. It's a natural choice for that background planting. But what I think I really enjoy, appreciate about this particular cultivar is that it's heat tolerant.
Yes.
It's one of those that's going to be able to take the heat. But what I like about it is if you compare, I see a lot of people, especially online, they like to compare Fire Glow naturally with Bloodgood,
right,
which we had at number 25. But I think Fire Glow, it doesn't get quite as big as a Bloodgood. But I believe that in the earlier stages of its growing, it's more vigorous than a Bloodgood. So using a Fire Glow instead will allow you, if you want that sooner, more instant gratification with your landscape, with your garden, Fire Glow is going to kind of get up there a little bit quicker than Bloodgood. Bloodgood's eventually going to take it.
Yeah.
But it gives you a little bit more vigor in the early years.
Yeah, and I agree with that because I feel like, because it has a little bit shorter and kind of a stouter stature to it, it fills out a little quicker. You know what I mean? It doesn't, whereas Bloodgood's going to be kind of stretched for a longer period of time. It takes a lot longer for it to really fill out and kind of fill its space, where Fire Glow is going to kind of fit that space pretty well. And I think too, with smaller gardens, so you're thinking in your mind, you're like, man, I don't have room for a Bloodgood. I don't have room for a 25-foot tree. I'm looking at trying to keep something maybe around that 15-foot range. Something like that. So, and I think Fire Glow is a great option for that. Great heat tolerant plant as well. And I think what's great about being heat tolerant is one of the features about Fire Glow is that when that light is shining through that leaf, it really illuminates the leaf, giving you that fire glow, exactly what that name says. And I think, as a background, not only are you getting that beautiful red color in the back, but you're also getting a play with that light. The way the sun plays through that light really just kind of makes that tree heighten its color and its presence, especially in a background setting.
Okay, guys, coming in at number 17, we have Acer Palmatum Cereus. Man, this is another one of those 10 to 12 foot tall, 8 by 10 foot wide in 10 years. So, holy cow, that's vigor.
Yeah.
It's going to get up there. So it's going to give you some of that instant gratification.
Right.
But man, I always say Cereus, man, especially as a background planting, man, to me, this is the quintessential tree that I see a lot of people. Well, you know what? I don't have any shade on my property. So when we talk about these other cultivars, afternoon shade, protect it from this and that, man, to me, Cereus is like, man, use that as a foundational background planting.
Absolutely.
Because it is going to create that shade for you to put those witch's brooms or those dwarfs or those shorter, more weeping plants in front of it. It creates an environment. So not only is it going to give you color and texture, because we're talking about it's green, but it's a lace leaf and being an upright, but it's also going to create an environment underneath it and around it that you can plant around it really easily.
Yeah, I love that about it, man. It's such a vigorous tree. And I think, when you're looking for your background plantings here, you want something that stands out just a little bit. And I think, Cereus kind of breaks the barrier of the lace leaf, the upright lace leaf. I think that thought process almost doesn't even make sense, because and naturally when you think lace leaf, you're thinking weeping habit, you're thinking smaller, you're thinking all of these things that tie to a lace leaf, but you're getting this with a vigorous tree, upright. Absolutely amazing. I love that finely dissected leaf. It's kind of a smaller leaf too, not even like as big as like your lace leaves would be. It's kind of a smaller leaf, but all that dissected leaf to it. Great fall colors too. Some like really cherry reds and maroons you can get in this in the fall. So the transition from the green to those reds and maroons in the fall is really extraordinary. And I think you don't have to be as careful, like you said, with your placement of it. You can put that out in full sun and not have to worry about it. And that's not to say for most maples. A lot of maples, you have to kind of think about, well, I need some afternoon shade here. But with Cereus, you're not going to have to worry about that.
Okay, moving right along, folks. Coming in at number 16, we have Acer palmatum, Germain's gyration. Woo!
Okay, yeah, this is like exactly what we were just talking about. Whereas, you think of those weeping lace leaves, you're thinking, kind of a smaller size. Well, that's why I had to put this one on. I'm like, this thing gets out there so quickly and just has a huge presence in the garden. And it's so odd to think of a weeping lace leaf as a background planting, because typically you're going to think, well, you're going to lose that, something like a viridis or green hornet or some of these small waterfall. It's going to be something that kind of, you feel like, well, that really wouldn't work in a background setting. But something like Germain's gyration, we're talking about 10 foot tall by 15 foot wide in 20 years. So this thing gets out there quick, very vigorous grower. And even at a young age, the structure on Germain's gyration is absolutely amazing.
Well, I always like that, Matt and Tim, I think their description or the way they talk about how do you want that Biltmore tree in your property at a short time, and that brings it. And like when you talked about the lace leaves, you think of it, weeping and just the habit of it. And a lot of times we talk, oh, this will be great for that small spot. Germain gyration, you got a big spot in the background that you need to fill.
Yeah,
this is going to take it. You need some room with this one.
For this one, for sure, man. And I thought a lot about too the fall color really playing into the idea of this becoming a great background choice, because intense yellows and oranges in the fall. I'm talking like this thing looks like it's on fire. Absolutely amazing. And then as that, what I like is the transition. You get that peak fall color, and the leaves start to drop, and you start to see a little deeper into that structure inside of it. It gets me excited, because every time I go over to Matt and Tim's place, that's one of the first trees I go look at, just because it's always kind of changing and growing and getting more and more mature. And each year it just gets better and better. And I love that about Germain's gyration. I think it's a great choice for a background plant.
Yeah, the hooking and contorting of it is just off the level. Okay, guys, coming in at number 15, we have Acer palmatum, Hogyoku.
Hogyoku. Yeah, this is a cool one, guys. I love this one. You get that bigger style leaf, the Anomenum style leaf to it. Really, really cool leaf. And I think this one here is a great example of how to use color variation in your garden. This is going to give you some beautiful, intense yellows and oranges in the fall. Now, we talk about pairings a lot, and I could have listed these other two along with this just as great background choices. Hogyoku is always kind of grouped together with like Osakazuki, right, Ichigyoji. There's a lot of other ones out there that kind of play, but it's because of their intense fall colors, and Hogyoku does it so well.
Well, I love that you're allowing your garden to have those different seasons and to play off of each other at different times of the season, so that when you walk out and look at your garden in spring and what's playing off of each other and really pushing,
right,
are going to be two different things. But then you come back in the fall and it's completely swapped itself. It's completely reversed itself. Right. And now you're looking at this instead of this. I mean, and that's just, the life of a garden and the cycle of a garden. And it's just so fun and exciting to see.
Yeah, vigorous grower too. I mean, one of the other reasons I chose this, you're looking at 20 feet in 20 years. So over time, this thing can be a nice big presence for your background in your garden. And I just think, we're kind of talking about those kind of bigger size plants that really kind of fill out spaces. I think the hardest part about backgrounds sometimes is just getting things that really fill out those spaces. You might have some ideas, but it takes a lot of planning and kind of forethought to think, man, how am I going to really fill out all these spaces? And then thinking about color variation and texture and all of those things is so important. And I think Hogyoku does a great job.
And I know, just, to put it out there, a lot of people ask, or we'll see sometimes after we do a video, these trees are zones 5 through 9.
Yeah.
So we're just going to put that out there. We're not going to go down each tree and say it's this. We're talking about a list that are all 5 through 9. So, you're safe with that. Coming in at number 14, and I love this because now we're really getting into bringing that spring interest to that background planting. Coming in at number 14, we have Acer palmatum, Katsura.
Ooh, man, I'll tell you, this is a great tree. This is one of my favorites I grew back in my Oklahoma garden before I moved out here to North Carolina. Pretty heat tolerant for me as well. Now I did have to protect this one a little bit from the afternoon shade, especially in those high heat areas where you get really intense heat. But one of the things I love about Katsura is that it's one of the first trees to leaf out in spring. So, and I thought, man, for a background planting, that's what you want. You want a star back there that's going to kind of set the tone for your garden and begin that display of color contrast and all of that. And Katsura comes out with some intense oranges, very intense oranges, and I love that about this tree.
Well, especially in that spring, it's going to cause you, if you put this in the background, it's going to cause you to look all the way across your garden. And especially in spring, it being one of the earlier ones, that's just building that anticipation for what's going to come up in front of it.
Right, exactly.
Great choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And good, vigorous tree grower as well, man. This thing get 15 foot in 15 years, so giving you that foot of growth a year, very consistent on its coloring. I think, too, like you can play around with it depending on where you put it in your garden. You can intensify some of that summer color if you give it a little bit more sun. If you kind of push the limitations on it, you can really intensify those kind of bright chartreuse greens that you get in those summer months, almost kind of a white bleach effect on Katsura if you can push it out into the sun a little bit. So great transitions of colors, and I love that early leaf out. I think to me that just hit me in my mind. I was just like, man, that's the perfect background tree to get the party started in spring.
Okay, guys, coming in at number 13, we have Acer palmatum, Lillian's Jewel.
Whew.
Baby, man, what's up?
Man, I'm telling you, we got some really, really strong cultivars here. This is going to give you some variegation. Now, we haven't been talking about variegation too much because typically you're not really thinking of that as like a background. But I tell you, Lillian's Jewel is so intense that even that variegation is not going to get lost in that background. You're going to see it. It's got a larger leaf, that Matsumura style to it, so it plays on your texture, hot pinks and reds and whites. I mean, this tree does it all so well. I absolutely love this cultivar.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up about variegation in the background, because I think a lot of times when we get into that variegated world, sometimes when it's thrown back in that background, and especially, I mean, like this one, you're looking at 10 to 12 foot in 15 years. So that's that's going to get up there. But a lot of times if it's in the background and you start getting to those larger sizes, your eyes aren't really able to focus on the variegation.
Right.
So a lot of times we think, oh, since it is variegated, we have to throw it up front. We have to put it in the main ground, or the put it in the foreground, or the mid ground, or it needs to be the focal point planting. And with this, like you say, is we could throw this in the background and still see that variegation going on.
Yeah, it's really, really intense. And I think what's cool about this as well, and I talk about this a lot with variegated plants, is you can play around with the color spectrum on this, depending on how much shade you have this planted in versus sun. In more sun situations, you get more of those like hot pinks on the red variegation, whereas more shade, you get more plays into the like softer pinks, white, greens and reds together, so you get more of a mix of colors all together depending on how you plan and put it in your landscape. And I like a tree that's versatile. I like a tree that can handle the heat, because Lillian's Jewel, even though it's variegated, it's very heat tolerant as well, and kind of giving you that mid-sized tree as well. So thinking about this as like the smaller gardens, we kind of talked about that with like Celebration and some of these, that you might have a smaller garden, so you're not able to put as big of things in your background. So I wanted to give some options for those smaller gardens as well.
Okay, guys, coming in at number 12, we have Acer palmatum Mikazuki. Man, I can't help, I've seen this tree in a lot of different gardens, in a lot of different places, but ever since we did the trip and went to Anton Clemens' garden, he had one. And the way he had it sited, it was that background with stuff in front of it. But man, the way he had that paired up with the conifers around it,
oh man,
the texture and the contrast of Mikazuki off those conifers in the background, man, just brought the Mikazuki just even more, just made it shine back there.
Yeah, really, really intense reticulated style Japanese maple here. Talon Buchholz's introduction, you know, he always hits when it comes to a cultivar. Definitely should be one on your radar. And I think what's interesting about Mikazuki is that when you think about the reticulated style of leaves, this one kind of starts to break the mold just a little bit. It has like that longer lobes, kind of longer, skinnier lobes, really exaggerates the features of the leaf. And the reticulation on this is really, really intense too. Even in like a shaded location, always very strong reticulation on this. And great fall colors, man. You get some beautiful oranges and reds on this thing. And the way that reticulated leaf starts to change color is a little bit different than just a straight leaf. So you get these plays of colors, that kind of gradients of colors that bleed in and out. Absolutely stunning. And one of my favorites of his like reticulated series, because this is not part of the official Ghost series,
right?
But it's one of the first ones that he started playing around with Mikazuki. Later on, the Ghost series came from that. So really cool tree, great history behind it as well. And you're kind of in that 10 to 7 foot in 15 years. So 10 by 7, 15 years. So you kind of get to that mid-range size on this, another kind of medium-sized tree.
Well, you know, those medium-sized trees with the shrinking landscapes that we have, the smaller properties that we have, those medium-sized trees become your tall, big trees in those gardens.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's a perfect fit. Okay, guys, coming in at number 11, we have Acer palmatum Oregon Sunset.
Yeah. All right. So I'll just come straight out and tell you guys, this cultivar has kind of been one that I slept on for a while. You know, it's been around for a while. I think it kind of, I think until you see a more mature size of this, you really don't understand what this tree does. And immediately in my mind, I thought, you know, especially in those smaller garden settings, I was like, man, what if you need something that gets wide? What if I need a wide space covered in my background, and not necessarily tall, but wide? How do I get that with a Japanese maple? Well, this is a perfect choice. You're going to get to that kind of 7 foot tall by 10 feet in that 20-year range. And we've got a nice one here at the farm. And I'm telling you, this thing really, really looks nice, especially in that spring blazing red colors out there. Amazing cultivar.
This is one of those that, you know, it kind of makes me think of like when I was speaking about celebration. Man, Oregon Sunset, and maybe it's just me, but man, that secondary flush, again, when you get that darker foliage underneath, but man, that red, that I mean, it's not even... Is it purple? Is it red? Yeah. Like it's hard to describe exactly what that color is, but that flush on top of it, like almost takes over the tree, especially with that habit. And one of my favorite times of the year with Oregon Sunset is when you are sitting there and you got some of that evening sun shining through that new growth.
Right,
man, it just shines. It looks like you took a lamp or a light bulb and put it up underneath there. It just shines.
Yeah, I love the colors on this one. Really, really intense colors. And then I think, you know, speaking more to that shape, I think this one really just fits perfectly in that small garden setting where you're needing a strong presence in the background that's maybe not going to get too tall. You need something to fill out a space. I think this is the perfect choice for that. I mean, I love it's not really a weeping style. It's just more of that spreading habit to it. It never really has like a strong, necessarily like central leader like you would think as an upright would. It always kind of a multi-branched spreading habit to it. So really cool, kind of play off the texture and growth habit in your garden.
Okay, now we're starting to get into the top 10.
Top 10.
Top 10. And this next one coming in at 10, Acer palmatum Pink Panther. Woo! Man, you talk about, again, it's kind of like that Katsura, man. You get that spring interest in your background.
Yeah, I mean, hot pink colors on this. The Pink Panther name hits it just right on the head because it's perfect. The pinks are intense on this, guys. And this is one that kind of a newer introduction that, I haven't gotten a chance to grow myself in a garden setting. But I've seen this one planted out, and I've seen this here in our greenhouses here at the farm. And I'll tell you, man, you kind of forget about it until that spring hits, and then you're just like, whoa, wait a minute, this thing absolutely amazing. And I think, again, like when you're thinking about that background planting, you want something kind of exciting back there that gives you a nice pop of color that doesn't kind of just get lost in your background area. I think Pink Panther really does a well job of that.
And Pink Panther, for me, it's one of those that if you can push the sun exposure on this, the more intense that pink is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen people say, I got Pink Panther, and it's just kind of this, bubblegum pink. It's not this intense pink that you're talking about. And then you ask them, where did you sight it? Well, I've got it in all day shade, because naturally when you think of pink and those, you think, ooh, I need to protect this. Right. But if you could push the sun on it, you're going to get that just intense pink. Now, if you look at, we got some pictures online. If you take a look of the ones that are in the greenhouse, they're getting shaded out. They're not going to push that. So the key with this one is push the sun on this as much as you can without it burning. Then you're going to get those just crazy, crazy pinks.
Yeah, I think, you hit on this on another cultivar earlier, but you get that secondary growth that starts to come in the summer months. It really intensifies again, because you will kind of start to lose that bright pink. Getting into your summer months, you start to kind of get into those greener tones, but then you get that secondary flush over top of that, kind of re-intensifies that, kind of brings that attention again to that background. And I like something that, it stills the show in the spring, and then it might kind of fade a little bit, then boom, all of a sudden it's giving you another interest in that summer month. Really nice too. And I think the fall color on this is kind of underrated. One of those that I've been kind of watching closely and learning about. It has a lot of multicolor effects that this leaf gets. The way the leaf turns color, you get some reds and oranges and yellows in there, kind of a mix of colors, which is a nice kind of change than just kind of a single note of color. You get a play of colors with that.
Okay, guys, coming on down at number 9, we have Acer palmatum Punkill. Man, I just love linear lobums. And, with Punkill, man, you're getting that red with it, especially during the spring with the way it leaves out.
Oh, yeah.
But man, there's nothing, like that right there. Again, we talked about that Hong Long, man. Punkill, throw that in the background. This tree is all about that texture.
Yeah, this is a great tree. I love the linear lobum style leaves. The texture is insane. You get that kind of long strap leaves. That leaf is just such a unique feeling in the garden. It kind of takes you out of the mindset of what a Japanese maple can look like. I mean, it really does kind of play into that idea of, like we talk about a lot, like a bamboo feel out in the garden. But this is going to give you that really intense red color. Now, what I like about Punkill as well is even in a shaded location. So let's say your background, you've got some big native trees there, maybe some oak trees or something like that. That's going to be kind of in a shaded location. Well, Punkill holds its red color very well in the shade. So you're not going to lose that kind of that highlight interest that you would get with it by putting it in shade. It keeps that red color. I've got one planted in my garden, and I have it in almost a full dappled shade kind of situation. I have several large, mature native maple trees in my front yard, and just that dappled sun throughout the day never really gets direct sunlight on it. And it holds that red color the whole year from spring to summer. I have it planted paired with a yellow threads on the other side. And so, just thinking about how you can use this in your background for texture, color, and that contrast is really a great tree for that.
I was waiting for that yellow thread. Okay, guys, coming in at number 8, we have Acer palmatum Ramona. And let me just say about Ramona, I think that Ramona, what makes this tree special is all about its foliage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this thing is intense. kind of a newer cultivar again. This is one that, I had to get familiar with, and I've been enjoying learning more and more about it because it is so intense. And one of the first things that came to my mind, and I put this on the list today, was because it's always changing. And I love to thinking about something in the background continuously changing throughout the seasons. And I think, it's got a great smaller size leaf, finely serrated edges on it, but the colorations is kind of, honestly, when I think about other cultivars, I don't see these colors coming out of any other cultivars. It's got these light yellows and lime greens with these hot pinks, soft pinks. It's just like plays so much into that color variation and always changing. As soon as it starts to kind of fade from that spring color, it's getting another flush. It's always kind of changing and kind of malting in its colors. And I love that about it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because, a lot of times we do, we talk about, why is my tree turning green? Right. Or like, we even had a podcast that Matt and Tim did about, the best trees for summer interest. And man, Ramona is like one of those quintessential summer interest trees.
Yeah.
But what I really appreciate about it is that a lot of times when, you start to go into you get into that later spring, you start going to that summer, the natural reaction of that tree is to fill with chlorophyll and just turn green. Mm-hmm. And Ramona, man, when you start to get into those later summer months or into the summer and then start getting to those later summer months before fall, you're not just filling with chlorophyll and going green. It starts to get this kind of like yellow tint to the older foliage, which is so different than a lot of different cultivars that are out there.
Yeah, really, really cool. Newer cultivar. Definitely one you should be kind of putting on your list and kind of thinking, where could I put this in my garden? Now, this is going to be kind of a medium-sized tree. Going to work great for those smaller gardens, 6 to 8 foot in 10 years. So not going to get too big, but I think it's just because of that color variation and intensity, I think it's the perfect background tree.
Okay, guys, coming in at number 7, we have Acer palmatum, Purple Ghost.
Purple Ghost, right? This is kind of the flagship of the Ghost series, Talon Buckcoat's Ghost series. So, Purple Ghost is such a consistent tree. That's what I love about it. It's one of those trees that you can count on that color being there, depending on where you're at. It always has that great red color coming out, and almost it gives you those purple tones when it first leaves out in the spring. And I think Purple Ghost also is a great tree for the background because it is pretty vigorous. You can get to that kind of 8 to 10 foot range in 15 years, but we've got to see the original there at the Buckholtz farm. And when you kind of see the size and scope of it that it can get to over time, it really kind of put it higher on my list of like, man, that's a great tree for a background.
Well, what really did it for Purple Ghost for me was Purple Ghost was probably one of the real early trees, first of the Ghost series that I added to my own collection. And Purple Ghost, man, for the early years of having it, I kind of, played it with the morning sun, afternoon shade. But man, this past year I resighted it and pushed the sun on it.
Yeah.
And man, even more vigorous, obviously getting more of that. But man, I pushed the sun on it, and pushing the sun on it really changed my whole view on it because, again, a lot of times we think, okay, it leaves out. You got that spring interest with those purples and kind of those pinks with that veining. And then you think, oh, okay, we're going into the summer months. Right. Man, this one, I like I say, I resighted it and really gave it some more of that sun pushing it. Man, it held those purple veining for almost all the way through the end of the summer. And by that point, we were starting to get those cooler nights.
Right.
Man, it really pushed it. So, man, Purple Ghost, get that properly sighted. It's going to become one of your favorite trees.
All right, guys. We're moving through this list pretty good here. We're at number 6 here on the list.
Yeah.
We got Acer palmatum Sukasa silhouette.
Man, I mean, okay, so the name Silhouette, I mean, it gives it right there. And you know me, I try to, when it comes to talking about landscaping, preach verticality.
Yeah.
And this one brings it. You're looking at 15 to 20 foot tall, only by 6 by 7 foot wide within 20 years.
Yeah.
Man, bring in that vertical interest to your background, whether it's Sukasa silhouette or anything else.
Yeah.
It is such an important factor in a garden, and you can't have a background without having that vertical interest.
Yeah, and I just love the fact that you have such a narrow growing Japanese maple, and you can really accentuate that by putting it in the background, because it's going to be this flagpole behind everything in the background. I could just imagine a row of these, along a background of your garden. Put 5 or 6 of them there.
Mass plant them.
Oh, man, it would just be absolutely stunning to see that. And really intense fall colors on this, too. Bright oranges and reds in the fall. Sukasa silhouette, man. I think it's interesting, too, because you already have this narrow habit, but me and Corbin talk about it a lot too. A lot of these that have these particular habits, you can really accentuate that by just some light pruning over the years. Maybe if you see a branch that kind of shoots out toward the side, go ahead and take that off.
Especially at the base. Especially at the base, because when you do that, you're going to push that energy up into the tree.
Exactly, and you can really accentuate that narrow habit. Especially, for this background setting that we're talking about here. I just imagine, in my mind when I'm thinking about, the background of my garden, like you said, I want something that's going to draw my eye out and then up and kind of be able to see the whole scope of the garden area. So I thought it was a perfect tree for our list today.
Okay, guys, we're getting into that top 5.
Here we go.
In those comments, drop down what you like to use for your background planting. We love to see those. But coming in at number 5, we have Acer palmatum. Woo! That's all I'm going to say. No. Acer palmatum ukigumo.
Oh, man. The floating cloud, right?
Right.
I mean, you think about a background, you always think of the sky and the clouds as the background. And I think this one really plays into kind of the imagery of that and the imagination of that. When this tree hits on its variegation, when it hits, because it can be conditional from year to year, some of that variegation can be conditional. But when it does it right and it has that perfect kind of climate for it and setting, also that planting setting really plays into what kind of variegation you can get. You do want this in a more shaded location. So if you have a shaded area that you're working in, this is a perfect background tree, because the white colors that you can get on this are unlike any other tree. I mean, it's hard to believe that it actually has enough chlorophyll in the plant to survive. When you see it in its most intense white, it's unbelievable.
Okay, you said inconsistent, but you know what is consistent about this tree is those fall colors.
Absolutely.
Those fall colors are consistent every time, so they're going to bring that every time. But what I appreciate about this, with you throwing this on there, even with that, you said that shade. So avoid the fertilizers on this one.
Right.
But the trick with this tree, to get it to be more consistent with that floating, with that white, with that floating clouds, is to let it leaf out as slow as possible.
Yeah.
You're going to get more of that. But a lot of times with background planting, naturally, depending on what's there and what you're creating, a lot of times it's naturally your backgrounds of your properties are already going to be somewhat shaded naturally just from nature.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live. Now, with ukigumo, you got something that you can throw into those. If you do have that darker background area, perfect. Throw it in there. That shaded area is going to allow it to leaf out slower, to give you that greater chance of having a more consistent with that white variegation.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And I think the transition from the whites and the greens that you can get in this into those bright, intense yellows and oranges in the fall really kind of played into my mind. It's like, man, what a great background tree. Because, you're wanting something that stands out. You want something that's continuously contrasting and playing with everything that's in front of it as well. So I think ukigumo, the floating cloud, you got to have one in your background.
And, you know, what I do appreciate about that is that with Ukigumo, man, the variegation, you could have a year where it is completely all white, but then you can have a year where it's like green with white speckling on it.
Yeah.
And then you can have a year where it's kind of white with green speckling on it. So like the variations, and depending on where and how you cite this, man, is just, I mean, next level.
All right, guys. So next on the list right here, we got a cool one. I love this tree. I tell you what, this one I fell in love with when I went to Buckholz. I already appreciated it and loved this cultivar, but I fell in love with it even more. We got Acer palmatum umege. This is such a great background tree because it has some of the kind of like oddest like tones of reds that you can get. Like it has these like chocolate maroons, like these mahogany colors, really, really intense, and a vigorous grower too. This thing can get out there pretty quick. A nice big canopy that it can form. And I love the way, and I shot a video about this, and I think you was the one that helped me shoot this video. The way the samaras.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like it added its own ornamental value to it.
It was so amazing. I mean, we had this huge specimen of it out there at Buckholz, and you know, all of these kind of these, like I said, these chocolate, these dark maroon, mahogany tones, and then these bright cherry red samaras hanging all over. It was absolutely amazing. It really just kind of stood out in my mind from that point. I was like, man, I got to have this in my collection. And, you know, it's kind of in that 15 foot in 20 years. So going to get out there, going to be a nice bigger presence in your garden. So I think it had to be pretty high on the list today.
It's funny you said that because that's exactly what I was thinking. When I saw this, the first thing I thought of was the samaras on it. Like, holy cannoli, like the ornamental value in that alone was off the chart. But man, you know, so this one also, though, you're talking about a tree from Japan, and it's part of the 1800s list. Yeah. And what I really appreciate about those 1700 and 1800 list, true and tested.
Yeah.
I mean, true and tested, you know you're going to have success with this tree.
Right.
It wouldn't still be in the trade today if it wasn't true and tested, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you don't have to just take me and Sean's word for it. I mean, this tree's been around since the 1800s, and for good reason. I mean, it's always consistent. Brilliant colors. I like the leaf on it too. It's a little bit different leaf than your standard, like a Bloodgood leaf, something like that. Really nice texture and color on this thing. I think it's just a perfect background tree.
Okay, guys, coming in at number 3, and personally, my favorite Acer Shirasawanum, Bronze Age. Ooh, man, I love this tree. And you know, for a background planting, not only are you getting the spring interest that the name is, the tree is named after, but man, again, we kind of hit on it before when we talked about a lot of these bigger and background trees are going to go back to that red color.
Right.
Man, Bronze Age goes to that just killer yellow.
Oh.
And, you know, honestly, I think more people that have worked at MrMaple have gone home with a Bronze Age for that fall color versus the spring color.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's just the, you know, I was just thinking, you know, the intensity of Bronze Age consistently from spring to summer, and that reemergence of color in late summer, and then that transition to that kind of unique yellow fall color that you don't expect to kind of happen. I think it kind of catches you off guard in that moment because, you know, you see all these plays and these pinks and these reds and these darker tones with kind of this veining a little bit inside too. You see this like yellow veining over top of that red color in the spring. You know, there's so much variances of colors. And then you kind of get to that fall and you're like, whoa, man, this thing is really putting on a show. And so for me, I thought, you know, for a smaller garden especially, now this only gets about 8 to 10 feet in 10 years. So a moderate sized tree, but the intensity of colors and the changing of colors on it, I think really plays as a background because you want something that's kind of always giving you something interesting to look at and also contrasting with what you have in front of it as well. So I think it was a nice choice for that. Not one that you would typically expect,
right,
you know, for that background setting, but you know, one of Talon Buchholz's introduction. I mean, absolutely amazing.
Oh, it is. And, you and I were actually talking off camera the other day about, this being an example of a Acer Shirasawanum. A lot of times, it's that, we think the full moon leaf, whereas the foliage on Bronze Age is, kind of palmate in a way, longer lobes, a little bit more, dissected up the lobes.
Yep.
So, not only in that world for Acer Shirasawanum, you're kind of getting that, you're starting to get into the foliage texture out there in the garden as well, which plays off with Bronze Age just so great.
All right, guys, number 2, man, we're getting close to the top here. Now, this is kind of where I was struggling. I was like, man, yeah, it's hard to nail me down on a number 1 or a number 2 of something, because I love them all. I'll just be honest, man. I haven't met a maple I didn't like, but so number 2 here, we got Acer palmatum, Okushimo. Whew. Man, this thing is so cool. This kind of brought me back to this cultivar. In my early collecting days, I learned about this cultivar. And this is another older cultivar from Japan, been around a long time. I don't remember if it's on the official 1800 list, but I know it's been around for a very long time. This is going to be intense. I mean, this tree gives you a great vase shape out in the garden. And that leaf, oh man, it's so interesting. It does things that kind of change your mind about what trees are supposed to look like. Such a tiny, small little leaf with all of this attitude, this little curl, this little flare that it's got. I mean, it just really sets itself apart from a lot of these other cultivars that we've even talked about today. I mean, the leaf shape on this thing is extraordinary.
So number 2, Acer, you talked about the tree. Number 2, y'all, Acer palmatum Okushimo. Man, but you described it perfectly. That's exactly it. I mean, you're looking at 15 to 20 foot tall by 10 to 15 foot wide in 15 years. Man, that's insane. But man, that crinkling of that leaf.
Yeah.
And it's almost not just a crinkle, it's like a crinkle and a twist. Like it wants to curl up on itself.
Yeah.
And man, that texture alone, you can set aside fall color, you can set aside spring color. Just the texture alone in the background is a game changer.
Absolutely. Yeah, this thing gets out there pretty quick. And I really kind of thought about that as well. That's why it's made so far up on my list. Like you said, the texture is off the charts. Then you have that vigorous growth behind it as well. It's going to get out there and create a dynamic presence in your background. And the fall color on this thing, it's absolutely amazing. You get these bold oranges and yellows on this in the fall, kind of this golden pillar. I remember the one I had in my garden in Oklahoma. It got to around that 12 to 14 foot range. And man, when it would turn into that fall color, just this glowing golden pillar out there in my garden. I really loved just how it played off of everything else. And I think, when you're thinking about that background, you want something kind of different. You want something that gives you a great texture, a great color. And I think Okushimo is one that's not really that common in the landscape either. So, when you're wanting your landscape to stand out, you want some things that maybe people aren't used to seeing in those background settings, or especially on that way that leaf curls. I think it really plays into the imagination of what Japanese maples can do for your landscape.
So we're about to move into number 1, and I've got to ask this, and it's rolling, so you got to be honest. Just from our conversations, is number 1 playing for number 1 personally for you against Moonrise? Because we're talking about Acer palmatum, peaches and cream, y'all.
Ooh, yeah, for number 1, I was trying to think of something that really always stood out to me with variety of color, and I think peaches and cream is probably one of the most intense of the reticulated styles. Just the crazy amount of colors you can get on this, depending on the setting too. I think it really plays on where you're going to put this out in your garden and how intense those colors can be. But the thing about it is like one of the strongest reticulated styles out there. Super intense, those peaches, those kind of maroon colors, those kind of red gradients as it comes into leaf, those creamy tones, dark green veining into that leaf. Really, really extraordinary tree. And I think for the smaller garden, which is kind of where I'm at, I exist in that smaller garden setting. This is the perfect tree. I think for a background, you want something that's always kind of changing and evolving with everything else in your garden. And I think Peaches and Cream does it so well.
Well, like I know I said it earlier, but if you're going to put that type, or if you're going to put reticulation, if you're going to put variegation in the background, it's got to be a strong, it's got to be a strong actor in that category.
Absolutely.
And, Peaches and Cream is just absolutely killer for that purpose because like you said, that reticulation is so strong, that variegation is so strong. In those background places, it's not going to get lost.
Yeah. Now, this is going to be that 8 to 10 feet and 15-year range, so a pretty medium-sized tree, not going to get too big, but the display of color, I think, is really what just made me kept coming back to this cultivar. The fall color is intense, too. You get these bright, bright neon yellows with some orange kind of splotching in there with it, so it really intensifies even in those fall displays. So had to be high on my list, and I was like, you know what? It's got to be number one, man. We had to come in and finish strong. I think Peaches and Cream is one of those reticulated types that it should be in every garden.
Well, I gotta ask. I know this has really been climbing on your list for a minute now. Is it in play for number one now? Could Moonrise get replaced as your ultimate number one with Peaches and Cream?
It definitely is playing for it for sure. I have both of those cultivars in my garden. I have Peaches and Cream. I have Moonrise. But man, every time I come out and check on my Peaches and Cream, I have it in kind of a shady spot in my garden, but man, it still just is so intense, so bright, so vibrant, and it just gets me excited about Japanese maples in general. And I love the reticulated types. And so, Moonrise, I don't know if it'll ever be replaced for number one.
You heard it here first, folks. Peaches and Cream is now number one. Moonrise is off the table.
But, I feel like I'm always so predictable with Moonrise. I try to throw people a little on the trail.
Throw a little curve there. Yeah. There you go. Y'all, we really do appreciate you tuning in to the Mr. Maple Show podcast. It was a lot of fun to sit here with Brian and go through this list of top 25 Japanese maples for background planting. In those comments sections, let us know what you're using as your background planting. Like I said earlier, we really do love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you guys' participation. I mean, it's so much fun to feel like we're talking not just to ourselves, but to you guys out there. So let us know what your ideas for background planting, especially using Japanese maples, because that's what we focus on a lot here. That's what we specialize here. Now we do a lot of other plants here at Mr. Maple, so don't get it wrong. I mean, there is we could do about 5 other lists of great background plantings.
Oh, you could do a whole conifers, absolutely.
So we were just wanting to kind of go through those cultivars in the Japanese maple world and see how that could really, help you guys understand how to use these in your background, especially in those garden settings. But I enjoyed today's topic. It's always fun hanging out with my homie Sean.
Y'all take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.